On a gentle spring afternoon, Elizabeth Watson stood by the large windows of La Luna. The restaurant, a renovated 19th-century mansion in Boston's Beacon Hill district, was preparing for its grand opening tomorrow. A soft breeze from the Charles River gently rustled the white linen tablecloths. Outside, tourists strolling along the red brick sidewalks gazed curiously at the newly renovated restaurant's facade. "Perfect," Elizabeth whispered quietly. The brass bracket lights mounted on cream-colored walls, the oak flooring, and the antique china cabinets meticulously polished by craftsmen piece by piece. The 40 seats, each with its own character, created a harmonious space. The chandelier scattered light like a prism, and the silver cutlery on the table settings emanated a quiet gleam. Everything was exactly as she had envisioned. Elizabeth tenderly stroked the worn leather-bound notebook she had pulled from her pocket. It was a recipe notebook inherited from her beloved grandmother Margaret 15 years ago. Opening its pages, her eyes fell upon a ravioli recipe written in her grandmother's delicate handwriting. The memories of making pasta while gazing at the moon with her grandmother as a child were still vivid. In the moonlight streaming through the kitchen window, her grandmother had taught her how to knead pasta dough while wearing a gentle smile. La Luna, that name contained those nostalgic memories under the moonlight. As the head chef at the Four Seasons Hotel, Elizabeth had earned solid recognition. She had been featured in the New York Times as one of the most promising young chefs, and had an impressive record of awards from cooking competitions. However, having her own restaurant had been her dream since childhood. She invested all her savings and took out a bank loan to take this step. But her memories inevitably drifted back to the family dinner 3 months ago. The incident occurred in a private room at the upscale restaurant, number 9 Park. "Oh, Caitlin has closed another wonderful property deal this month." Martha's voice resonated throughout the private room. Her sister Caitlin, her pearl necklace gleaming elegantly, continued speaking with a proud expression. "Yes, it's prime real estate in Beacon Hill. The commission alone will be $100,000. Next month, I'll be handling a vacation home in Martha's Vineyard." "That's my daughter," John said proudly. A former investment banking executive, he always delighted in his younger daughter's stories of glamorous success. From his years of experience on State Street, he only saw value in sure investments. "Elizabeth, how long do you plan to continue with that unstable job?" At her mother's words, Elizabeth stopped her chopsticks. Her mother Martha had established herself as a regular in Boston society circles after graduating from Wellesley College. "Being a chef is a respectable profession, Mother. Anne. No, nobody in society takes a cook seriously. You should learn from Caitlin. You have talent, but to waste it in the kitchen." A heavy atmosphere settled over the table. Elizabeth silently stared at the foie gras on her plate. Even the expensive dish felt tasteless as paper at that moment. 3 months had passed since then. Elizabeth had poured everything into preparing for the opening. Leveraging her connections with top chefs, she assembled the finest staff. She brought in James, who had trained in Paris as sommelier, and recruited Sarah, who had worked at Michelin-starred restaurants as pastry chef. And last week, she sent opening party invitations to her family. Alone in the restaurant at night, Elizabeth sips from a wine glass. The deep red wine in her glass shimmers in the moonlight. There's still no response from her family. Checking her phone screen, only the read marks glow coldly. "They'll surely come," she whispers, as if trying to convince herself. Outside the window, the gas lamps begin to light up, and the Beacon Hill streetscape is quietly enveloped in the evening's curtain. The historic red brick buildings stand as if watching over the beginning of a new story. Tomorrow, a new chapter begins here. With the determination to meet her staff's expectations and realize her dream, Elizabeth stood up. In the kitchen, preparation for tomorrow has already begun. Fresh Cape Cod seafood lies buried in ice, and the aroma of herbs wafts through the air. Elizabeth put on her white chef's coat and stepped into the kitchen anew. The stainless steel counters reflect the moonlight, mirroring her quiet determination. The ravioli inherited from her grandmother was meant to be the highlight of tomorrow's menu. The morning of the opening party began with the crisp light of early spring. At 5 a.m., La Luna's kitchen was already filled with energy. "Elizabeth, the lobsters from Cape Cod have arrived," called out Maria, the sous chef. Elizabeth nodded while concentrating on finishing the sauce before her. Her grandmother's tomato sauce, simmered for over 12 hours, was just reaching the perfect consistency. "Thank you. We'll use it for tonight's main course." The coordinated movements of the staff resonated through the brand new stainless steel kitchen. The sound of pasta dough being rolled, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables, the opening and closing of oven doors, all harmonized like a beautiful orchestra. Around 10 o'clock, the floor staff began gathering. "Everyone, today is a special day for us," Elizabeth began speaking quietly before the assembled staff. Her white chef's coat gleamed in the morning light. "This restaurant is not just a business. This is a place filled with each of our dreams. Let's convey those feelings to each of our guests tonight." The staff's eyes shone with determination. At 6 p.m., the first guests began arriving. Michelle Parker, the Boston Globe's food critic, appeared in an elegant evening dress. Following her came the conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, local political and business leaders, and renowned wine critics. VIP guests entered the restaurant one after another. "This interior is wonderful. It's like a high-end restaurant in Florence. The view is spectacular." Words of praise resonated pleasantly throughout the 40-seat restaurant. Elizabeth maintained a perfect smile while greeting each guest, but her heart quietly wavered. Her parents and sister had still not appeared. "Here is today's amuse-bouche." The waiters gracefully carried silver trays. "This is a surprising flavor. The cooking is exquisite." The food critic's eyes began to sparkle. As champagne bubbles rose elegantly in the glasses, Elizabeth checked her phone yet again. Still no contact from her family. "Elizabeth, we're getting consecutive orders for the lobster ravioli with moonlight tomato sauce," called out Tom, the sous chef. This dish, meant to be the signature menu item, was a modern arrangement of her grandmother's recipe. "I understand. I'll prepare it now, but first serve what's ready." At that moment, her phone vibrated. Her sister's name was displayed on the screen. Elizabeth's heart raced. "Caitlin? The party today, the main dish is about to..." "What? That was today?" A cold laugh echoed through the receiver. "It'll fail soon anyway. I don't have time to see that." Elizabeth's throat went dry. "But you promised." "I'm busy. Don't contact me about such things. Besides, I have an open house for a new condo in Weston, so I'm hanging up." Before the call ended, Caitlin's contemptuous laugh lingered in her ears. With trembling fingers, she dialed her mother's number next. "Don't contact me during my cruise." How annoying. Her mother's voice resonated against the background noise of a ship's party. "But I told you it was the most important day. I don't care about your selfish dreams." I'm enjoying the Caribbean. Don't call again. Elizabeth stared at the disconnected phone for a while. In a corner of the kitchen, where no one could see her, she took a deep breath. Looking up suddenly, moonlight streamed through the large windows. It was a gentle light, as if her grandmother was watching over her. Elizabeth lightly pressed her eyes, exhaled deeply, and returned to her usual composed expression. Everyone, let's begin preparing the main dishes. Her voice as a chef resonated through the kitchen. That night's main dish, lobster ravioli with moonlight tomato sauce, was acclaimed at every table. This delicacy is truly artistry. I may be witnessing the birth of a new legend in Boston. Michelle Parker was earnestly taking notes in her notebook. After the perfect completion of dessert, it was already past midnight when the last guests left. Elizabeth, it was truly a wonderful evening. I will definitely visit again soon. The reservation phones will surely be ringing off the hook. The VIP guests departed one after another, leaving words of praise. In the now quiet restaurant, Elizabeth stood alone by the window. The night view of the Charles River drew bands of light on the water's surface. Bathed in moonlight, Elizabeth's lips formed a slight smile. Tonight, she had enchanted everyone with her cooking and her strength. Her family hadn't come. But somehow, that no longer seemed important. Elizabeth. The staff, having finished the final cleanup, quietly approached. We're proud. We're glad to be part of this restaurant. At those words, small tears glistened in Elizabeth's eyes. Outside, the pre-dawn breeze gently caressed the letters of the La Luna on the sign. Boston's streets quietly watched over the beginning of a new legend. 2 weeks after opening, La Luna's reputation had begun to spread steadily among Boston's gourmets. Elizabeth, another reservation call. Jessica at reception called out, holding the reservation book. It was already filled through the end of June. Thank you. But make sure to keep space for 4 walk-ins each day on the waiting list. Elizabeth answered while concentrating on finishing her dishes. To serve perfect cuisine, she intentionally limited the number of daily reservations. This allowed her to put her soul into the cooking for each party. The day after Michelle Parker's review was published in the Boston Globe's food column, the restaurant's phone rang first thing in the morning. La Luna, the birth of a new star creating miraculous flavors. The article, titled thus, lavishly praised the cooking from the opening party. This ravioli is a perfect fusion of tradition and modernity. While modernly arranging a recipe inherited from her grandmother, its soul has been wonderfully preserved. Chef Elizabeth Watson is a rare talent who tells stories through her cooking. From the moment the article was published, the reservation calls never stopped. I'm very sorry, but our earliest available reservation is currently for the end of August. Jessica's polite responses could be heard from the front desk. In the kitchen, Elizabeth and her staff were silently wielding their skills. Since opening, the menu had continued to evolve every 2 weeks. Today's specialty was Maine lobster Boston clam chowder style. It was a dish that presented a completely new interpretation of a New England traditional dish. Chef, the guests at table 7 would like to speak with you. Sommelier James informed her. Elizabeth washed her hands and headed to the dining room. Thank you for the wonderful meal. Seated at the table was Jonathan Sterling, New York's most influential food critic. His visit had been unexpected. Especially this lobster dish. It reminded me of the clam chowder from my childhood home. But it's completely new. This creativity is phenomenal. That night, photos of La Luna's dishes were posted on Sterling's social media. His post, with 1 million followers, was instantly shared widely. A new sacred ground of fine dining has been born in Boston. A week after the post, La Luna was featured prominently in the New York Times restaurant special. With the headline, "A Notable Chef Bringing a New Culinary Revolution to America's East Coast," it detailed Elizabeth's life story and La Luna's philosophy. The reservation calls were now beyond manageable. "Elizabeth, look at this." One morning, sous chef Tom showed her his smartphone screen. Celebrity chef Gordon White had praised La Luna on his Instagram. "In over 20 years of visiting restaurants worldwide, this might be the first time I've encountered cooking that moves my heart so deeply. Elizabeth Watson is undoubtedly the chef who will represent the next generation." The post included a photo of Elizabeth's signature dish, moonlight ravioli. Within 24 hours, the post exceeded 1 million likes and attracted the attention of gourmets worldwide. One day, a gentleman with a quiet demeanor visited during lunch. "Today's guest might be a Michelin guide inspector," James whispered to Elizabeth. "As always, our best cooking." "That's all," Elizabeth responded calmly. That day, the gentleman presumed to be an inspector savored the course meal for 3 hours, taking detailed notes. Hollywood stars and political heavyweights also began frequenting La Luna. Tomorrow, the President and First Lady will be visiting. When Jessica announced this, a moment of tension ran through the kitchen. However, Elizabeth's expression didn't change. "We won't do anything special. Let's serve our usual best cuisine." That determination was conveyed to all staff members. The presidential couple's visit was a great success. The media reported Boston's rising star enchants even the president, and La Luna's reputation reached new heights. The waiting list has exceeded 2 years. One day, Jessica reported this. "VIP reservation requests are also flooding in. But as per your policy, we're declining them all." Elizabeth nodded with satisfaction. At La Luna, even the most powerful people had to wait their turn for reservations like any other guest. This stance further elevated the restaurant's reputation. Then came the fateful call. "Elizabeth, it's a call from Michelin." With trembling hands, she took the receiver, an international call from Paris. La Luna had achieved 3 Michelin stars just 4 months after opening, setting a record for the fastest 3-star achievement in American history. The news spread around the world instantly. "Chef, look at this." The kitchen staff excitedly pointed to an article in Forbes magazine. La Luna's estimated annual revenue exceeds $20 million. Chef Elizabeth's annual income expected to surpass $10 million. Elizabeth smiled quietly. Success for her wasn't about revenge, it was the result of staying true to her beliefs. However, occasionally her family's faces would cross her mind. Her parents were still on their cruise. Contact with her sister remained cut off. There was a loneliness in the corner of her heart at being unable to share her success. Through the restaurant's window, the full moon shone gently. Elizabeth opened her grandmother's recipe notebook and began conceptualizing her next new menu. In the moonlight, new inspiration was welling up. La Luna continued to shine with new brilliance in Boston's night sky. The autumn in Boston welcomed her parents back from their world cruise. It was an October day when the foliage along the Charles River gleamed in the sunset. "John, look at this article." In their luxury Beacon Hill apartment, Martha Watson handed a magazine to her husband. On the cover of a Food and Wine was a large photo of Elizabeth cooking in the moonlight. The miracle chef recognized by the world, Elizabeth Watson. Martha opened the article with trembling hands. La Luna, where reservations flood in from around the world throughout the year. The waiting time currently exceeds 2 years, and even VIPs must wait their turn. However, this policy only serves to increase the restaurant's value further. To think that Elizabeth would. John Watson's voice trembled. Just then, the phone rang. Mom, Dad. It's terrible. On the other end of the line, Caitlin raised her voice in distress. What's wrong? My real estate company. Most of our major clients are postponing their purchases of luxury properties in Boston, saying it's because they can't get reservations at La Luna. Martha gasped. Caitlin's real estate company specialized in luxury properties for Boston's wealthy. It was ironic that the inability to dine at La Luna had become an obstacle to real estate purchases. Can't something be done? Contact Elizabeth. I've already tried. But La Luna's front desk just keeps saying, we cannot accept priority reservations through VIP channels. Even using my name didn't make any difference. Caitlin's voice grew hysterical. Even the cancellation list exceeds 300 people. At this rate, my company will. After the call ended, Martha collapsed onto the sofa. John, what have we? That night, unable to sleep, the couple turned on the TV. There, they saw a special program about La Luna being broadcast. La Luna has earned 3 Michelin stars. This sets a record for the fastest achievement in American history. On screen was Elizabeth, cooking with a composed smile. The camera carefully followed her delicate handwork. Chef Watson's signature dish, moonlight ravioli, is a modern arrangement of a recipe inherited from her grandmother. The harmony of tradition and innovation is masterfully achieved. Martha watched the screen with tears in her eyes. She finally seemed to understand the feelings poured into Elizabeth's cooking. The next day, Martha mustered her courage to call La Luna. We sincerely apologize, but our earliest available reservation is currently 2 years away. But I am Chef Watson's mother. A moment of silence flowed across the receiver. We deeply apologize, but as per the chef's policy, we cannot make exceptions even for family members. In that moment, Martha understood everything. The cold words they had once directed at their daughter were now being returned to them. Back home, John pointed to a newspaper article with a stunned expression. La Luna surpasses $30 million in annual revenue, a new legend born in the restaurant industry. The following article included an estimate that Elizabeth's annual income exceeded $20 million. That figure surpassed even John's highest salary as an investment banking executive. While our investment assets keep shrinking in this recession. John's voice echoed emptily. That weekend, Caitlin visited her parents' home. Her former radiance had faded, unable to hide her exhausted expression. I've lost 3 more major clients. Everyone says, we're not interested in properties where dinner at La Luna can't be guaranteed. In the luxury real estate market, dining at La Luna had become a new status symbol. And ironically, real estate agents who couldn't secure this status were losing their clients' trust. I wrote an apology letter to Elizabeth. Martha quietly announced. Tear stains remained on the envelope. Dear beloved daughter. Please forgive us who couldn't understand your dream that day. The letter was carefully written, expressing her mother's heartfelt regret. But no reply came. Turn on the television, and La Luna's stories overflow. Every time Elizabeth's smile appeared on screen, Martha's heart tightened. One night, John was looking through an old album. There was a photo of young Elizabeth cooking in the kitchen with her grandmother. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled, filled with pure happiness. "We laughed off our daughter's most precious dream." John's voice echoed emptily in the night's stillness. Caitlin's real estate company finally fell into management crisis. Sales of luxury properties had halved, and half the employees chose to resign. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Caitlin was shouting in front of La Luna. "Just because of one restaurant." However, this wasn't something that could be dismissed as just anything. La Luna had become more than just a restaurant. It had become the new center of power in Boston's social circles. Martha and John were forced to reconsider their luxurious retirement lifestyle. Their assets continued to shrink with the stock market's decline. Meanwhile, news reporting their daughter's success kept flowing in, as if accelerating their regret. Just before Christmas, Martha wrote a letter with her last hope. "Dear daughter, Christmas is a time for family to spend together. That day, we..." The reply came the following week. An envelope with La Luna's letterhead. Inside was a single, businesslike note. "Dear Madam, thank you for your letter. We regret to inform you that La Luna does not accept special operating hours or VIP reservation arrangements under any circumstances. We appreciate your understanding. Sincerely, La Luna. Executive Chef, Elizabeth Watson." Outside the window, snow was falling quietly. Martha held the note to her chest and quietly shed tears. At that moment, she clearly understood that they could never return to the past. La Luna's reservation waiting time now reached 3 years. In Boston's night sky, the restaurant's lights continued to shine, cold yet beautiful. La Luna welcomed its year-and-a-half anniversary. In the sunset that dyed Boston's streets golden, Elizabeth was conceptualizing new menu items. "Chef, about the food bank charity event," Secretary Sarah quietly called out. Elizabeth looked up from her sketchbook. "Yes, next Sunday works fine. A warm meal for Boston's underprivileged children." La Luna dedicated one day each month to social contribution activities. This reputation had further elevated the restaurant's value. "Also, I'd like you to see this." Sarah held out an iPad. The screen displayed the Boston Herald's business section. "Shockwave in Beacon Hill's luxury real estate market. President Caitlin Watson's company heads for liquidation." Elizabeth quietly read through it. Her sister's real estate company had apparently chosen the path of bankruptcy. "One more thing. A letter from your mother." The envelope bore her mother's familiar handwriting. It was the 12th letter this year. "Dear daughter, today I watched your interview on TV. Seeing you speak about food education activities for children made me so proud." Elizabeth put the letter in her desk drawer. She wouldn't write back. That night, La Luna was welcoming special guests. The directors of the James Beard Foundation, Pillars of American Cuisine. "Elizabeth, you've achieved wonderful evolution." The luminaries were savoring the new creation, Moonlight Sea Autumn in Boston Bay. Made with seasonal seafood and based on her grandmother's recipe, this dish had become La Luna's new signature work. Next year's Best Restaurant Award will undoubtedly go to La Luna. True to those words, La Luna's success knew no bounds. The reservation waiting time reached 4 years, with gourmets from around the world waiting their turn. One day, Martha faced an ironic situation at a friend's party. Say, Martha. Chef Watson at La Luna is your daughter, right? Yes, but... How wonderful. I'm so looking forward to going there next month. Martha could only manage a bitter smile. Her friends could go to her daughter's restaurant, but she, the mother, couldn't even enter. Caitlin had moved from her luxury condominium to a more modest apartment. The clients she lost because she couldn't secure La Luna reservations would never return. Life is ironic, she muttered while looking at La Luna's feature article in the newspaper. Now, Elizabeth's annual income exceeded the combined income of the entire family. As Christmas approached, Martha made one last attempt, visiting La Luna with a homemade cake. We apologize, but the chef is away today for a lecture in New York. Martha nodded weakly at the front desk's words. As she left, she watched the warm light leaking from the restaurant's windows dissolve into the cold winter darkness. Shortly after the new year began, an invitation arrived for Elizabeth. Harvard Business School. Special lecture, Innovative Management Philosophy, La Luna's Success Case Study. Lecturer, Elizabeth Watson. On the day of the lecture, the Great Hall was filled to capacity. Elizabeth calmly spoke about her management philosophy. Success isn't about revenge against others. It's about staying true to your beliefs. And it's about the true freedom gained in that process. During the lecture's Q&A, one student asked, "Do you think family relationships are important in business?" After a moment of silence, Elizabeth answered calmly, "What's important are the people who sincerely stand by you. They're not necessarily blood relatives. For me, La Luna's staff has become my new family." Those words would be quoted many times in business magazines. As spring approached, special dinner preparations were underway at La Luna. "Chef, today's guests are arriving." A dinner to welcome important charity supporters. Elizabeth had prepared to serve them the finest cuisine. At that moment, word came from the front desk. "Chef, I apologize, but among the guests..." Elizabeth caught her breath when she saw the monitor's image. Her parents and sister were there. As charity organization members, they had properly gone through the reservation process. Elizabeth exhaled deeply, then slowly smiled. Everything as planned. That night's dinner would come to be called La Luna's finest cuisine ever. Her parents and sister, along with other guests, experienced the essence of Elizabeth's cooking. As they left, Martha left a letter at reception. But this time, it wouldn't be read. Elizabeth already knew everything she needed to know. The moon visible from La Luna's window shone as gently as ever. Elizabeth opened her grandmother's recipe notebook and began conceptualizing her next new menu item. Now, there were no regrets in her life. There was only the strength to keep moving forward and the pride in having chosen her own path. Beyond the Charles River, the light of a new day was beginning to rise.